Hi, everyone.
Hi, morning.
Hello.
Everyone. I hope you're doing well. We'll give a few moments for people to join the room. Good morning. So while we wait, let's kick things off and let me know in the chat if you can hear me loud and clear. What's the weather on your side? Where you're based? So I'm in the south of France at the moment, and it's gorgeous. It's summer already, so I can't complain. So let me know on your side. Let us know on your side how the weather is treating you. Hi, Kelly. Dublin is lovely and great. Ah, geez. Lots of Dublin people. Good morning. Oh, obviously someone from Cork. Kilkenny, sun is shining. Very good. Welcome, everybody. So that's great. So warm welcome to you all, and thanks for being here today. Today's topic is about employer branding. And for those who don't know me, I'm Marina Rivas, Marketing and Brand Manager at Great Place to Work. I'm also passionate about helping organizations with their employer brand and bring it to life. And I'm also supported today by Akshita Sood, our marketing wizard. And before we get started, I have a few updates for you on the Great Place to Work side of things. The first great news is we have our 7th edition of our Employer Branding Summit coming on November the 20th in the Windmill QTR in Dublin too. So you can register through the QR code here, or actually we'll pop a link in the chat. And we have a very special offer for you today, especially. We have a special offer of 120 euros for 2 tickets bought. That's a very early bird price, and that's only for the 21st tickets. So hurry up if you want to attend again at the Employer Branding Summit for this special rate. And if you're not part of the Great Place to Work community yet, and you want to discover what it is to be a great place to work and to get recognized, we have a webinar on the 19th of June, everything about the Great Place to Work program, the journey, how to get certified. So if you have any questions around that, you can join this webinar. We'll be having some live questions as well from the floor. So you can, again, register through the QR code or through the link in the chat. Great. So now on today's webinar, as we go through the session, don't forget to ask your question in the chat or in the Q&A function. We'll try to cover as many as we can. And we will also be sharing these slides and the recording afterwards in a follow-up email, so you have it all there. So for today's webinar, we're delighted to have Alfonso from Heineken and Andrew from Atomic. Hi, guys.
Hi, morning.
Hi, Marina.
So Alfonso is People Director at Heineken Ireland, and you have 20 years experience in HR, talent strategy and culture, spanning multiple continents and leading transformation and at organizations like Heineken, obviously, and BAT. From launching global employer brands to shaping local culture, you combine business acumen and a genuine passion for people. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks so much for the invitation. That's quite a CV. I'm not sure I did all of that, but I'm really happy that I'm really happy to be seen like that, Marina. So thanks so much for the introduction.
No problem.
Quite flattering.
And we also have Andrew from Atomic. So you're the employer branding lead at this award-winning creative agency, which is Atomic. You have over a decade of experience in employer branding and internal comms. You've worked with major global brands like Workday, Unilever, Schneider Electric, and of course, Heineken. And you bring a sharp creative lens and also a deep strategic thinking to everything you do. And thank you very, very much for being here today with us.
Thanks very much, Marina. Delighted to be here.
Great. And also delighted to announce that we have been partnering with the folks in Atomic to really help our clients and everyone really to bring their employer brands to life, combining creativity and strategy to make a real impact. So if this is something you want to work on in the future, please reach out to us. So welcome to you both. And before we dive into Heineken's fantastic case study, I will take a few moments just to remind us of 2 main points, which is what is an employer brand and what is an EVP, just so everyone gets an idea of what it is. So really your employer brand is essentially your company's reputation as a place to work. It's how current and potential employees perceive you. It's what people say about your organization when you're not in the room, which is different from your employee value proposition, which is the core of that brand. It's a unique mix of benefits, culture, values, and experience that you offer employees for their time, skills, and commitment. So really put simply, your EVP is what you promise as an organization, and your employer brand is how the world sees you deliver this promise. So now that we have clarified the difference between the two, we're going to run a quick poll to know where you are at with this in your organization. So does your organization have a defined employer brand strategy? And do you have an employee value proposition defined? We'll give a few moments for you all to fill in the poll, and then we'll share the results with everyone. Okay, so I'll share the results now. Great. So most of you are currently working on defining your employer branding strategy. Some of you don't have one or not sure. And same for your employee value proposition, definitely working on it at the minute. Well, you're at the right place today. It's going to be all about building your employer brand, and you're going to have an inspiring case study with Heineken. So let's dive into it. Before we start asking questions to Alfonso and Andrew, we'll have we'll actually watch the campaign, the employer branding campaign from Heineken, and see the great work they've been doing with Atomic.
Our star, it's famous the world over. But it's more than just a logo. For us, it means everything. It's a symbol of pride, a badge of passion. Our guiding light towards making a difference. And what gives our star real power? It's our people. It's in the way we work together, create together, laugh together. How we strive to make a positive impact on our customers, our communities, and each other. It's excitement, it's enthusiasm, it's pure energy. And how through collaboration and innovation, we craft some of Ireland's favourite beers and ciders, brewing moments and memories that last a lifetime. A career at Heineken is more than just a job. It's a journey of learning, of growth, of shared experience and success. Because every one of us plays a role in making it happen. So join us and be the spark that fuels our star. Because at Heineken Ireland, we don't just make the beer, we make the star.
That's fantastic. And what a powerful employer brand to have people and beer in the same video and to be able to call it your employer brand. That's amazing. I love it. Great. So, and we can see a few of the assets that you guys have built. These are real people working for Heineken. So that's also very powerful to be able to use your own ambassador in this campaign. So, Alfonso, we'll start with you. What was the moment that made you say, okay, we need to invest in our employer brand?
So first of all, morning, everyone. So I think for us, it was pretty much an organic kind of journey to get there. It kind of made sense to go out and showcase the uniqueness of our culture. So we've already been saying for many years internally and to our engagement scores and what our people say about the company internally, that Heineken is a very special place to work, a very unique environment, a very unique culture, where we kind of have some very specific traits, but we have never gone out to kind of tell other people, candidates, consumers, society in general, what Heineken is about as an employer, right? Most people know very well our consumer brands, our beers, our ciders in Ireland and beyond through our sponsorship platforms, but also through experiencing our brands. But we felt that it was the right moment to showcase that uniqueness of our culture externally, to inspire people outside of the company. And And I'm kind of a strong believer that a good employer brand is kind of giving people the kind of the smell of the place. So how does the place smell when you haven't been in the place? And that was kind of the I would say the driving force behind going out and creating a very intentional employer brand to showcase our culture. That was the main reason. And then of course there were some, I wouldn't say secondary objectives, but some other things that we felt were super important about not only showcasing the culture, but also targeting a very specific cohort of talent, given the nature of our business, which in beer and mostly in the areas of sales and supply chain, so brewery production, we have a high percentage of males, and we wanted to make our business sexy also for female talents in the market. So that was one of the driving forces behind. And I would say last but not least, we see, especially for a business where Heineken is the name of our company, but it's also the name of one of our main brands, right? We believe that there is not such a thing as a employer branding and your consumer brands completely separate and your corporate brand completely separate. You're one thing, and we talk to different audiences with different messaging at different times, but we felt that our employer brand could reinforce the role of our consumer brands with consumers the same way our consumer brands, our beers, reinforce our brand as employer.
Yeah, okay.
So I would say those are the main reasons why we thought employer branding would be the next step for us.
Okay, so that campaign was really tailored to all the people around in Heineken environments, the consumer, the people already working for Heineken, but also, as you said, the talent you want to recruit, right? And I know you were saying that you chose these people as well in a way that would inspire the people that you wanted to attract. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, I think that so like you said, everyone in the campaign, of course, our own people, not only because it's a way for us to show the authentic self and the authentic culture we live at Heineken, but also because internally the sense of pride of colleagues being heroed in a campaign and how much they talk about it to their family and friends, for us in itself, that was a big win. And you could see in the 60-second sizzle video, but also then in the later kind of assets that we put in the market, the likes of Orla, who is there, and she's one of our youngest sales reps in Dublin. And we wanted to showcase a role model of how a female talent can do kind of sales repping very successfully in an environment which is pubs, mostly full of men owning those pubs, or Juliana, who is there, and she's our first brewer that joined the company 3 years ago. So we wanted to showcase as well that role model. So yes, we selected those role models to basically inspire female talent out there saying like, wow, I want to be like Orla. I want to be like Juliana. Their jobs look amazing.
Very good.
I made earlier as well, sorry, with Alfonso, with you, that you wanted Irish people on camera. And that was something, I think, in the first brief when we met you. And I think where some brands go wrong, they're okay with using global voices and global tone to connect to a local market. And it doesn't connect in the way that they hope it would. So I think just on that foundational piece with Alfonso saying, I want Irish people on camera. And then secondary to that, it was like, okay, strategic role, strategic people, etc. That's kind of like it's a win that you can immediately get in your campaign if you do that. So it was definitely a benefit.
Yeah, and I guess it really helps with the authenticity and the uniqueness of the campaign as well.
Yeah,
And we know employer brand is a discipline which gathers HR, marketing. In this case, it's a client and an agency. So how does it work? How do you make sure all these people work well together? How did that work in the collaboration between Atomic and Heineken?
I just think in my own perspective is not a nice to have. For me, that's a must for a successful employer brand. I've seen peers and colleagues and friends in other companies where the whole effort starts from HR, let's say, starting the project, gathering some budget, and then along the lines, later in the process, hey, let's tap into marketing to get their view, their perspective, their feedback, or their challenge. for me, I would reverse that and say you only start the journey from day zero with marketing, with internal comms, because you need to get buy-in on the business case, but also you basically need to get that diversity of thinking, that creativity, and those perspectives in play from day one. And I think the other element is, if we think that an employer brand, we're talking to candidates, right? But at the end of the day, candidates are also your consumers. So if I'm talking to someone in terms of attracting them to Heineken, they might be going to a pub 2 hours later and enjoy a pint with friends. So then that kind of full alignment and diversity of thinking and creativity from day zero, for me, is a must for a successful journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think for me, the aligned ambition at the start, getting a sense of that, like we're kind of unknowingly, we're both kind of, it's like an interviewing each other during the briefing process as to whether you think you've got the same shared values and the same ambition for the project. So definitely, I think with Alfonso, when we met, that idea of kind of mutual respect, particularly with Fiona as the lead marketeer, Alfonso as the lead people stakeholder in the project, and then the little sub team that came in there as well with HR and corporate comms. They all had elements to bring, and kind of respect and ambition was completely aligned. And I think really, like, Alfonso knows his business much better than us. Like, we know employer brand and what connects in the market and trends, and we have battle scars of previous projects we've done. So I think both coming with what our strengths are and then leaving our ego at the door for the ambition and success of the project is really important.
Very good. And Heineken is certified as a great place to work and listed as one of the best workplaces, right? How did you use that data into the project and to really align with that creative direction and to match what you were finding doing all this work around the EVP with what you found in the survey results with Great Place to Work?
Yeah, so it's actually the first time we've heavily leaned into Great Place to Work data. So it's been a really interesting exercise for us. And Alfonso had that as one of his core components of the project, that he was going on a couple of journeys of the EVP, but also aiming for this certification. With us, we always start with reviewing existing data. So that tends to be NPS scores or LinkedIn insights or Glassdoor insights. So when Alfonso kind of delivered us the final data set from Great Place to Work, it was really, really rich in what you guys had uncovered, and was definitely something that we felt synced with some of the themes we were finding from Alfonso's other data sources. And then also we did a couple of workshops with Colin and Alfonso to kind of get under the covers as to what you guys had actually found. Once we'd done that, we kind of carried it through to how do we add a bit more texture into this kind of static data. So we would have created discussion guides and focus groups and one-to-one interviews that kind of springboarded off the themes that we'd uncovered. And from that, then we were kind of in a really kind of rich territory of some themes that were unique about Heineken Ireland. So it was kind of like one data source that, because of the due diligence you guys do to source that data, was massively, massively useful.
Great. And
I think, Marina, if I may add in there, because I'm absolutely spot on. And if we think about the sequence, so we did the whole insights piece with Atomic before, right? In terms of understanding the main traits of our culture. And then the Great Place to Work results came in later, a few months later. So I think two things happened with that deep analysis that Andrew and the team did together with us. Is number one, some of those insights from Great Place to Work reinforced what we knew or what we had seen from a culture, which was great, because it's the way our colleagues perceive the Heineken culture is very much aligned in two different data sets coming from two different angles. But in terms of learning and development opportunity for us in Heineken, and this is now talking about EVP, EVP is the fuel for an employer brand to be credible, right? Because your EVP is what you do, how you position yourself internally, your benefits, your policies, your ways of working, and then you put that into like a comms strategy, right? But then it needs to be authentic. People kind of feel or experience different things to what you tell them. And then with the Great Place to Work, which was deeper into those insights, Marina, it helped us to identify where we still have gaps and opportunities that we can tackle to continue reinforcing our EVP, to continue to be even credible towards our employer brand. So I think it plays in those two different layers, which makes it much richer.
yeah, it's definitely an inside out exercise where you really need to understand your culture, work on it, and really develop that EVP first before going out with great video or assets like that and thinking of how it's going to bring it to life, really. So you really have, as a first step, to work on your culture, at least understand where you are at, and Great Place to Work is a great tool for that, and then activate it out there for your potential talent, but also retention and customers, as you said before. So we know that obviously Heineken is a global brand as well. Here we're talking about that local campaign. So I'm interested in knowing, how did you hit that balance between that global brand and that local kind of uniqueness and authenticity that you obviously hit with that really good campaign?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a curse and a blessing at the same time, because once you have such a powerful brand with such kind of clear, recognizable features, personality, right? It's a blessing in a way that you can piggyback from something that is already known, top of mind for consumers and candidates, and also has a high equity, high reputation. But at the same time, it's a bit of a curse, because you need to kind of make sure that whatever you produce from an employer branding perspective is at that level of quality, excellence. So I think a few things in there. Number one is having your marketeers and your internal comms people from day zero working on this helps you as well put the guardrails and the understanding of what is possible, what is not possible, how can we make sure that we match the quality of the brand. But the other thing is, which is, I think, a very interesting discovery we had along this journey, is for the last few years, we've been working on this kind of local approach, right? For strong global brands, how do you tailor them to the local needs to make it relevant to the Irish consumer, right? But in here, we discovered that when you start from your local insights and you align that with the global brand, it's almost like the reverse. You go from local to global to make sure that it makes sense with your global strategy and your global brands, that you don't derail from it, but at the same time that the insight and the production is truly local, which is quite interesting, because I've done with Heineken other employer brands when we created the global infrastructure, and then locally you give it a twist. We put some local music, we put the local flag, and then we localize it, right? Does it really feel local? And to Andrew's point before, is the insight came from local Heineken. The production came from our local heroes. It was done by a local agency. So then bit of a question that I have no answer for is it global to local, or is it local to global? And I think what I see employer branding now is going more towards, and this is my personal view, local to global, to make it more interesting and more diverse.
Yeah, I think from an agency side, when Heineken call, there's a massive excitement because they've got such a big consumer advertising footprint. They're not a professional service firm or a B2B firm where they're not necessarily as prominent in people's eyes. So when our studio got an eye on it, there was just a massive ambition and excitement over how do we tell the Irish story, but then also how do we tell the employer brand story within this kind of big global brand framework. So thankfully, Alfonso, Fiona, other stakeholders were really keen on trying to flex this as much as possible for the Irish market, which is brilliant. Some clients don't do that, which is where some of the work is strong, but it doesn't have that, oh God, I can really, as Alfonso says, they can smell the culture in this place. So I think the ability to kind of take those local insights, carry it through to, okay, getting Irish people on camera, and getting Irish isms on camera. Like, we have a very, very strong culture. So making sure the language isn't just brand neutral, that it feels like it actually connects to Irish people, and the role when Alfonso looks into on trade, HQ, females, supply chain, all those elements, that it feels like it's kind of true and authentic to those people. And once you kind of like keep them in mind, it's just considering it. I think it doesn't like budget and size of project is secondary. It's just more considering what you're trying to achieve and having that in mind all the way through the project, and not losing sight of that. So I think we kind of like kept each other honest along the way with that.
Amazing. What was the response internally, Alfonso, to this campaign of people seeing themselves featured there, and that authenticity really aligning with what they live as employees at Heineken?
Pride. I think the first one was pride, an immense sense of pride. But not only pride from the colleagues that were featured in the campaign, but it's also the colleagues that were not featured. They were very proud of seeing their friends and the colleagues featured and on LinkedIn and everywhere in the country. So I think pride was the first one. The second one was always a bit of slag and sense of humor, which is very much part of our culture. So in Heineken, the sense of humor is something, and fun is something that you would see across any team in any meeting. So there was a bit of slagging, like, what you did, what you said, how you said that. So there was a little bit of slagging for weeks and weeks to go in a very nice way in our internal platforms, to even a point just to kind of give that proof point that then fast forward in the company annual conference that we have every year with every single colleague from the country coming to one place. We saw the blooper video, and it was all the kind of behind the scenes with people making mistakes in the production and people saying crazy stuff. So I would say pride and that element of sense of humor and fun, those are the two main things that we kind of experience. For
We should
sure.
we should have displayed the bloopers as well today. I feel that perhaps that would be even more authentic than
Yeah,
the
yeah,
campaign itself.
yeah,
So
yeah,
really
yeah.
good that you made some content out of it as well, because I really feel internally that you got a good crack out of it.
Yeah, we did.
And it's actually something that like showing the texture of the lived experience is something that a lot of brands don't do. Like it's not a Disney movie. You know, there's going to be positives and negatives, like how people actually talk about your brand. And I think allowing your team to have that flex to talk within the kind of framework you've decided at LT level or whatever it might be. Like Alfonso gave some of that team license to kind of present Heineken in the way that they live that Heineken experience in Ireland, which I think where it kind of comes through as being really authentic in the content. So that textured rough surface piece is something that I think is important.
I think that's important, Andrew, because we did not start, and you, I'm sure you experienced that as an agency. We didn't start from this is the corporate narrative. This is the Heineken narrative. So let's make this now an employer brand campaign. So this is who we are. We literally didn't have a narrative at all, not even one sentence. We started from the inside. We said this is how people perceive Heineken. Let's make this visible and apparent in the employer brand campaign. But there was no single global narrative that say, hey, this is what we need to translate into the local Irish campaign. And I think that's what makes a campaign not only more authentic, but also more interesting for people involved, right? Because it allows for more creativity and fun with it.
Yeah, definitely.
And Andrew, you're working with a lot of companies around their employer brand. Is there something that is often overlooked in that exercise of building that employer brand? We've just seen with Alfonso that importance of going from the inside out and really understanding your culture before having an employer brand. Is it something that you see often? Is there kind of a usual pattern that companies have and they think they know coming to you, and then there's a rework exercise?
Yeah, I think sometimes we get companies coming to us who kind of want to tell us what the experience is. And I think they tend to not work with us as an agency. I think often we just kind of feel it's not a good fit. If a senior team member comes to me and says, like, there's no point in doing insights, I can tell you what's going on here. And you're like, oh God, as a lead, I'm getting the ick from what they're putting forward. So I think the insights piece is key, and investing in that in a strong way and giving us the space to actually kind of uncover what's the real experience there. And then embracing the texture of what comes out in that we're coming again of just not being afraid to show the lived experience in your organization. And I think sometimes what's happening, particularly with the world of ChatGPT, people are just becoming very generic and feeding into buzzwords. And by speaking to everyone, they're speaking to no one. And then they wonder why their employer brand maybe isn't scoring positively on external sentiment sites and stuff like that. So I think like having it rooted in insights is key. If that doesn't happen, it'll fall down. And then I think having the kind of the bravery and ambition to kind of like show the real version of your brand in market is key. So there are two things that I think again it's more the budget and ambition of the company to bring it to life is kind of secondary to those kind of principles.
Yeah. So there's nearly that element of vulnerability when you want to develop your employer brand, to actually being able to look back at your own culture, work on it first before, and then bringing comms in and doing that whole exercise of bringing it to life, really. in this great campaign and when you work with other brands, I know you need to measure what's happening, the results, the impact. Can you let us know in general which KPIs you're using? What are you measuring? And in this case, with the Heineken case study, what great KPIs could you measure and the great impact internally, externally that this campaign had?
Yeah, so there's kind of two lenses. So oftentimes people just think of the external validation of their brand, but internal is as important. So there's two sides of it, I think. So externally, the obvious ones that fall out is okay, increase in website visits or increase traffic on social or job applications or hires in strategic roles. Those kind of key metrics are kind of things that everyone kind of looks at. Internally, you're looking at okay, increase in NPS scores, potentially retention in what you're trying to do, reduce in attrition, increase in referrals. There's a whack of metrics that if you Google it, you'll find them. Outside that, I think for us as an agency, just from an ambition point of view, that kind of award piece is quite important as well. So we partner with Alfonso at the start and set the ambition of what he's trying to achieve. So like, is award something he's interested in? What are the cold metrics that he's going to be judged on as the main project lead on this? But for us, I think awards is really important. We won an award with you guys. We're going on a bit of a circuit now in the UK with the RMAs and the RADs to kind of get this work seen over there. And particularly as an Irish Indigenous agency, that kind of competing on a global level is something that I kind of find a lot of pride in. I consider it Little Old Ireland, but like we're dealing with a very, very sophisticated employer brand that would have impact on any global level. So I think that's something that I'd look at personally as well.
Do you want to jump in, Alfonso? Is there a couple of
Yeah, so I think a few perspectives from an external perspective, like Andrew was saying. Of course, we look at website traffic, but also number of applications, which increased by 52%. So that's a massive increase. But at the end of the day, we didn't have an issue with number of applications at Heineken. We have already like a known company, so the number of applications was already there. It's higher now. But what we've experienced is a difference in the quality of applications. It's much more targeted. So we have seen an increase, for example, in female applicants to our brewery and our sales teams, which is what was one of the main objectives of the campaign. So the quality and the profile of the applicants has shifted. Now, when we look internally, you could argue that it's not only because you do an employer brand that you increase the levels of engagement, but because you do an employer brand, it gives you the foundation to create the ecosystem around the employer brand. So you invest in your EVP, to further invest in your policies, benefits, ways of doing. Because you do all of that, you contribute to higher engagement. So even on the we do like climate survey once a year, and we do pulse survey in the middle of the year, which is a mini climate survey, right? And if I say with you just one of the key questions we have in there, which is I intend to stay with the company for at least the next 12 months, we are now on 92%, which is a growth of 11 points pre-campaign and post-campaign. Okay. So again, that is not only because of the campaign, but that's because of what you do around the campaign, right?
Yeah, that really reinforced what you were already doing. So we can see it's external as well in terms of KPIs, but also internally, because the big jump is definitely good for your retention. So as we said earlier, it's amazingly well done for candidates, but that's also really core for your employees and your consumers, that for your own brand at Heineken, most of the time your consumers are also your employees and your potential candidates. So that's why it's really aligned with what you do. And you answered Jennifer's question there in the Q&A about, did you see a shift hiring more female talent? So would you have more data on that around the female candidates?
Yeah, we have for sure have seen an increase in the number of female applicants to those jobs. We also have seen an increase in female hires within the company, both. Now, I have to say that we do not have quotas in terms of hiring females over males, but what we do have is an interest in having more females applying, but also we've worked on the whole end-to-end recruitment process to make it more gender neutral. So we work on now gender neutral job posts, but also we make sure that for every process we have interviewing panels with males and females across the journey, and also in the final decision-making panel board, we also have diversity of gender. So it's not about hiring female for the sake of it, but it's about attracting more female to the campaign and also making sure that the process to get to the company is much more gender neutral.
Very good. And I can see already a few questions coming, so we'll get to the Q&A in a second. But before we go to that, one last tip for the audience from both Andrew and Alfonso, one thing that the audience should retain from you today.
Oof.
And Andrew, you go first. You are the man. You are the man of the magic tips.
Yeah, I think for me it's kind of starting with insights and embracing what comes out of them. I think is something that's very, very important. That I think sometimes it's a lot of our clients, there's a rushness to get to the kind of pretty content and pretty outputs, and I think there's also a rushness to kind of like get to a standard where the competitors are. And I think everyone's on a particular journey, and just to own that, like, it's as long as what you're doing is considered and rooted in the truth of your company, it can actually deliver more than someone who's got 15 videos or a really fancy website. So I think starting with who are we trying to speak to on a basic level, and then how do we present an authentic and compelling message to those people. Further to that, then you're like, okay, how do we bring it to life in pretty ways, whether it's outdoor advertising or video or whatever that looks like. There's ways of doing that in a scrappy fashion, but if what you say isn't true to lived experience and authentic, you're kind of blowing money in the wind. So it's just something to consider, I think, is to not rush that foundational work, because it's going to stick to you for a sustained period of time.
Very good.
Yeah, what I would say maybe three things. So number one, make cross collaboration from day zero a must. Make sure that even from the business case inception is much more than HR building an employer brand for candidates. Make this more of a company strategic effort. So bring that collaboration up front through business case to the deployment of the campaign. Secondly, I would say hero your people always. No question about it. So never go for a stock photo, never go for acting people, never go for that. So it's quite obvious, but still you see employer branding out there that is done with actors or stock footage or whatever. So, and the last one is the market is super cluttered now with consumer brands and employer brands out there. And it's very easy to have a good looking employer brand that is very generic. I would say, like, play to your strengths. Don't try to play everywhere. Build on your insight and build something that is you and that is a little bit edgy. And then the question that comes always is, okay, I don't have the money. No, we don't have unlimited resources either, but I understand that some other smaller companies have even less resources to build a campaign. So I acknowledge that. But I think most of the times money is not the problem. It's the lack of creativity is the problem. If you look at, there's one of my favorite pieces that I don't even think it was intended as an employer brand, but it's the one that I have as a reference because I love it. Is that video from Steve Jobs. You can check that out in YouTube. I think it's even from the 80s. His voiceover that is, "Here's to the crazy ones." That's, I think, a 1-minute clip from Steve Jobs in black and white, probably very, very cheap. And it's one of the most amazing pieces about like getting an insight, making it big, attracting a type of people that you're looking for. So when you're thinking money is a problem, have a look at the video, and then you will see that money is not always the problem.
Right. And I know a lot of companies today might need a few tips, like without the big budget. And what we discussed today is really to have a look what's happening internally. And you can do that without the budget as well. And really trying to understand the core pieces of your culture and then really bring that to life. And social media nowadays, it's free. So you can really post about it, rely on your ambassadors internally, and the people who love sharing on LinkedIn about what it is like to work for you. Then rely on these people, arm them with the right content, and try to understand in a few bits and pieces what will be your EVP, and then bring that to life. And of course, putting a lot of resources around it makes it an amazing campaign like this one. But it's also great to do that in an authentic way and relying on your people as well. So thank you so much for that. We'll take questions from the floor in a few seconds. I can see very interesting one coming already. And just before we do that, we'll launch a quick poll just to know if in your organization you have a dedicated person around employer brand. We said it's a whole exercise about bringing HR and marketing people together. So we're interested in knowing, do you have the support in place already to do that? Great, we can see some answers coming in already. So do you have a dedicated person or team in charge of your employer brand? Great, so we can end the results and share them now. So yes, at 23%, which is a big jump from the last time we asked the question in the same kind of webinar a year ago. So that's really good to see more and more people are investing in this area. Some of you have a role, but it's not their main focus, and most of you don't have an employer brand resource yet. So it's good to see the understanding of the room here. So now we can jump into Q&A. So we received some already we can assess, but please put your question in the Q&A or in the chat function, and we'll try to cover as many as we can. One question that came in early was around that challenge, perhaps, Alfonso, around alcohol. Alcohol being seen sometimes as negative for health reasons. Any thoughts on what impact that might have on your employer brand and how you have navigated that challenge throughout the campaign?
Yeah, so we didn't have any particular challenges regarding the campaign, but I have to say that we promote as part of our company strategy and policy responsible consumption. In fact, just to give an example, 10% of our marketing budgets, so what we use for campaigns on our cross portfolio, are geared towards responsible consumption and moderation. So that's kind of part of our company and part of our policy. When it comes to our employer brand, I think that's a really, really good question. I remember even like 10 years ago discussing about the global employer brand. Should we even showcase our brands in an employer brand campaign? Like, should we even show people drinking beer or cider in an employer brand campaign? But at the same time, we said, like, this is kind of what we do. So we are brand builders and brewers, and this is a product, and it's a product for adults, which we promote through again, moderation and responsible consumption. And we are really proud of our role as brewers, but also our role in society to create bonding, to create social connections, to create, as we say with Heineken, quality socializing, because we believe that our products are much more than a drink with alcohol. It goes into like creating that bonding in the pub, creating those conversations, those special moments. But in the campaign, yes, we showcase our products, because again, that's what we do. If we are attracting sales reps will be selling a portfolio of beers and ciders to pubs, or Juliana, who is in a brewery, beautiful brewery in Cork that is 180 years old. She's brewing beer every day, you know, and she loves it. So we basically love what we do, but we also love to promote that moderation, and that's our way about doing business, but also about a way for us to be open and transparent and authentic about our company. Hiding behind the scenes with our products would just not make sense for us, and would not make sense for candidates either.
From an execution side on an agency, there was a few ghosts that came out of the closet in FA and design and stuff like that, with regards to like corporate brand guidelines being jammed in with regards to, okay, this is how many drinks on a table in a photo shoot, or we need to put our drink aware stamp on certain assets and stuff like that. So there was kind of things that we probably hadn't considered, that master Heineken guidelines just kind of came in and put a hand down that like, this is how we have to operate outside of just the basic people comms. So a learning on our side, actually moving forward, if we were working with when we've done a few alcoholic EVPs, but just kind of getting that out at the start when we're doing a shoot, what's the red tape around how your people can show up with your product, so that we kind of front step that. There was kind of some elements of final approval where like, oh no, we need to put this badge on, or let's change that picture out, or zoom in a way, or crop it. But that's kind of more from an execution point of view.
Yeah, and your employees as well at Heineken have a deeper connection with the product, more than just consuming it. They sell it, they produce it. They have so it's not only about consuming beer. It's really it's much more for them. So we understand it's kind of less the focus in that type of employer brand campaign. We could see how it could be a challenge for consumer brand adverts, for example. Actually, there's a question there asking, how do you balance the difference between having an employer brand and a consumer brand while ensuring they align and feel connected?
That's a super good question, and I think that's literally what we're saying about a little bit of a curse and a blessing, because that's maybe that collaboration with marketing from day one is super important, but also the guardrails of the global Heineken brand. So this is what we stand for as a global consumer brand. This is a culture, and how do we make sure that they tag along with each other? So I would say there is a bit of a challenge there, but as long as kind of we align with the global brand frameworks, it's more of an advantage, because at the end of the day, Heineken stands for quality, stands for global, stands for diversity, stands for sponsorship, and those are things that we definitely can benefit from when it comes to employer branding, because it becomes part of our culture. To your point, Marina, people feel really proud about being part of that chain of putting a beautiful pint of Heineken in the hand of a consumer. So everything that happens in that process is what made the employer brand what the employer brand is. So yes, there is certain restrictions in a way, because we have to make sure that the color palette, the messaging is aligned with the global Heineken brands. But at the same time, we have a lot of flexibility when it comes to how people experience the journey from barley, from cereals that we buy to local farmers, to that kind of Heineken that we see in a Champions League final.
The other side of that, then, I'd consider, Alfonso, slightly lucky that the consumer brand and the corporate brand are kind of tied. We've done a lot of work with FMCG and other alcohol companies where the parent company is kind of an unknown name, and they have massive challenges trying to engage people who use them on a consumer level, but they don't know the main corporate brand name. So with that, it's a different challenge. But I suppose, how do you, when the child brand is more famous than the parent, but the parent brand is hiring, how do you navigate that? Which is, it's a very interesting thing to tackle. So at least Heineken, it's synonymous with culture and social elements in Ireland and globally. So I think there's positives within that, but you're kind of operating more in like okay, let's be very careful with how we treat this.
For sure, yeah, for sure.
There's a couple of questions there of people who want to know where to start. Like, if they want to build an EVP and employer brand, what is the first step for them? So Andrew, what would be your best advice there?
Okay. I think to start with, you need to figure out what does it need to serve. What's the purpose of the EVP? If you're building an EVP without understanding what it's trying to do, you're going to be kind of walking in the dark. So for me, I think kind of figuring out with whether it's your leadership team or key stakeholders, like what does the EVP have to serve? Is there something inherently wrong with culture? Is there something going wrong that we found out in an NPS survey or something like that? So figuring out just like a couple of bullet points on what is the goal of this? Like in 12 months' time, if we have an EVP, what does success look like? Is it that we're scoring in a more positive way with some of those, I feel like I know the company metrics, whatever that looks like? Once you have that, it's kind of getting a sense check of what the existing experience is in the company. So that can be done by deep diving into your existing data, speaking to people. So like, why did you join? Why do you stay? What's stopping you from moving? Looking at your competitors as well, so that you're not saying something that's just general wallpaper. So who are you losing talent to or hoping to take talent from? From that, you'll kind of see a natural white space come out that, oh, we think we're innovative and dynamic, but actually all of our competitors are saying the same thing. So that it'd be silly for us to use that as a lead thought. And then I suppose, where do you want to go with your brand? What's the expectation in relation to budget or ambition? So as a couple of key steps, like get a workshop on like what is the goal and function of this project, what are our competitors saying, like what's good, what's bad, what could we feed into, and what's currently happening in an organization. And from that, you'll kind of get some foundational blocks that you can use to kind of lean into, okay, how are we going to bring this to life? The messaging stuff is hard because the last thing you want to do is create something that's kind of brand neutral, which is where a lot of brands fall down. If I take away their logo, that it could be anyone. So what we want to do is kind of create knownability about that brand, which, yeah, experts can expedite that and make it much stronger. But if you're just aware of that, okay, I've come up with the tagline I love, but okay, if I take away the logo and I put it against 5 competitors, they're all kind of saying the same thing. Why would a candidate join me, or why would they engage with my content when it's on social? So there's kind of some basic things that you can kind of feed into just to give you some building blocks.
Great. Do you want to jump in, Alfonso? What would be your advice if people were starting first, like from scratch of building their EVP or employer brand? What would you do as a people director?
I would say 2 things. Like, I think align with Andrew, is understand why you want to do an employer brand. So what is the need? Why you do that? What is just the strategic intent behind it? Is it, and it can vary from excite your own people, engage with a specific target audience, increase your reputation as an employer in the market, or whatever. And then second is go for the insights, and then so understand what you are about. So what your people tell you about their culture and their experience. And for that one is get a good sample of people like that have been in the company for a year, for 10 years, that are less than 25, more than 50 in different functions. And then once you get a good kind of spread of people around and ask, a set of questions, try to gather those insights of how do you experience working here, because then in there, that's where you will get the insights that will give you the starting point for building your employee brand. So need and insight, I think those are the 2 things that I would start with.
Excellent. And we have more practical questions from the audience in terms of really capturing that campaign. How did you manage the diversity within the campaign? Were there any challenges capturing the deserved tone while staying authentic?
I think Andrew, you can give us a perspective as well, because we put forward lots of colleagues saying like, but then you help us also with the selection of people based on different reasons. So what's your view, Andrew, on that one?
Yeah, so we kind of, with regards to people, we figure out what we're trying to say. So from the insights, we'll say these are some key themes that we're going to bring out. We then build kind of discussion guides and prompts with regards to what themes and content do we want to capture on the day. We then do pre-screening. So if we plan to capture 4 or 5 people on the day of a shoot, we'll actually overcook that and maybe pre-screen 10 and try and uncover who has something really interesting to say. Like the people who seem most charismatic may actually be a bit shy on camera when it comes to it, or maybe their story isn't engaging. So actually some of the content that we have in the can that we haven't produced are actually really engaging stories as well. So there's more to come in this campaign. Alfonso picked a few key people to kind of bring it to life at the start. Yeah, I think that the pre-screening piece and just making sure that you're not giving them just like free reign to say what they want. You kind of have to give them a kind of freedom within a framework of, these are the pillars we want to touch on. We want you to make it your own so that it feels authentic. And we're going to give you license to bring it to life on camera.
Very good. Very good. And there's a very technical question around featuring the authentic people. So people working for Heineken, what happens if they revoke the rights to use their image, or what happens if they're not working for Heineken in a couple of years, right? So how do you manage that?
So on a shoot, we always kind of capture supplemental, we'll call them models, but talent. So for example, Alfonso has a big suite of people we captured on the day. If someone leaves, we have other people there that we can supplement in. They also sign waivers. So to be slightly crude about it, if the company at the start, they've agreed to waive their ownership of their personal brand. If they want to challenge that, it becomes a secondary issue. But more often than not, it just becomes a case of switching people out. So we'll always say, okay, we have 5 hero models, or whatever it might be. Let's actually capture 8, 9, 10 to give us that kind of risk aversion. If someone does leave, we can just supplement someone in, which is aligned with what the vision is of our client.
Very good. And I loved your global kind of reference to it, to kind of local and global aspect there, Alfonso, earlier. So what was the reaction to Heineken Global to this campaign? Was it used globally? Was it sent to other markets? What was the reaction in the Heineken world to this local campaign?
No, they absolutely loved it. And I can give one kind of proof point to that. So once a year we organize internally the Commerce Week. We call it Commerce Weeks. That's when all the sales and marketeers from the world get together for a week in Amsterdam and discuss about the commercial kind of challenges and strategy, right? And then within that week, there is which are very, very popular internally, what we call the Commerce Awards. So then there are nine categories, right? So these are the kind of for marketeers and for salespeople, these are the awards that everyone wants to win. And this year, our campaign, We Make the Star, has been shortlisted for one of the Commerce Awards, which we're gonna pitch for next week. So internally, the campaign has created a huge buzz, very positive. And then the global team are looking into what we did and how we did it to try and learn from it, because literally of that perspective of, do we produce something globally that then the markets tailor locally, or do we get 2 or 3 great local examples and try to elevate them globally, which I think that's the journey we are going towards. So yeah, it created a huge attention, and it's been very well received internally.
How could it not? It's an amazing campaign.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And we have a question from Annette in terms of kind of you build it from the inside out, and that question is about the after. How do you make sure you still live that employer brand promise, that EVP long term? So what are the 2-3 things that you do to ensure everyone is kind of walking the talk?
One thing that we've been discussing also with Andrew and the team, and I think that's very critical now, is to continue sweating the assets, which we have done quite a bit externally, is how to integrate that in everything we do internally. So the campaign has been so successful that now even this week we are communicating internally our calendar of activities around the areas of DEI, which we call At Home at Heineken. It's a very specific brand for our diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda, right? So DEI, our well-being agenda, and our employee experience agenda, right? And then we are putting those 3 under We Make the Star as the umbrella brand. So one of the things we are doing is now using We Make the Star as the umbrella brand for our internal efforts to integrate that from candidates to onboarding to retirement. So that's one of the things we are doing, integrating that internally much more. And then externally, I think once we believe that we've sweat all the assets that we still have to produce, like Andrew was saying, we would go into a 2.0 version of it.
From our side, we always look at our model has 3 phases. So activating the employer brand externally and internally. So externally is that stuff you've seen with regards to hero video and GIFs and static assets and website redesigns and stuff like that. We then inverted an internal comms program. So how's it showing up with your intranet or any of that stuff that happens there? We then embed it in your email communications internally. So that goes from hiring. So if you use an applicant tracking system, we take that unique messaging and pair it to respective stages of the process and manually on automated touch points. And then we look at enabling anyone who talks to candidates to speak in line with that brand based on what they're trying to achieve. So that's 1 pages for recruiters or hiring managers, kind of pitch decks, or it could be like assets specifically designed at that hiring stage of the journey, so that if there's an objection over something, they've got a bag of goodies to say, here's a blog in relation to, I don't know, fun or glocal at Heineken that I can take and I can deliver to a candidate to kind of nurture them through the process. So depending on the appetite and sophistication of a client, you can really get strategic with where you put your EVP throughout those kind of internal and external touch points. But it's baby steps though. Like some people will invest in areas that they think is a big return driver for them.
All right. So in addition to really trying to attract the right talent and going to these niches, it's also for you to highlight the pain points in the talent journey, and also through this content and material, being able to answer these kind of queries or pain points you have throughout the candidate journey. That's a very clever approach to building an employer brand, right?
Yeah, historically, people would just be thinking of that main metric of, okay, we've got an application, leave me alone. So as marketeers, it's very much like that traditional SaaS model of sales and marketing. So here's your lead. I don't care if you close it. I don't care how you're going to close it. Whereas what we're trying to do is actually carry that proposition that would have attracted them in the first place and sharpen it based on, okay, this person is an engineer in Sweden. What do they care about? Or how does the Irish Heineken brand in relation to supply chain flex, and making sure our messaging is relevant to the candidate through all of the journey. So when you're looking at ROI and return, like if you hit the holy grail of those 3 areas being activated, that's where real significant change can come in your organization, in our mind.
Great. That's excellent. We're nearly at the end of this webinar, so we'll let everyone go. So thank you very much, Andrew and Alfonso, for all these insights. And thank you for joining today. Thank you for everyone for participating. And yeah, we'll see each other soon and more employer branding content, and have a good rest of the day.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Marina.
Thanks, everyone.